Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Thank you for being here. Merci d'être ici. Shawn Graham is for sale, but New Brunswick and NBPower Power is not. Hey. This deal is outrageous. What the government is on the verge of giving up compared to what it feels it is getting should be a concern to each and every New Brunswicker. We weren't sure what the details were going to be, but I can tell you that we expected a lot more. And we certainly didn't expect that Shawn Graham was handing over control of our public utility to another province. Shawn Graham and this government are selling our public utility and our soul of every New Brunswicker. It's a far worse deal than we ever expected. And it's not just a bad deal, but the whole process is a complete sham. Right from the fact that New Brunswick Power isn't Shawn Graham's to sell in the first place, to the terrible deal itself. And despite that, what the government spin machine would have you believe, it isn't a $10 billion deal. It's a $4.7 billion deal. And aside from that, it's just plain bad. If you're an ordinary New Brunswicker, you're being sold down the river. In all honesty, we expected a substantial rate reduction, but no reduction at all, especially while big industry gets a break of 30 to 35%, is totally unacceptable. We know the Shawn Graham government has always put big business first ahead of the people of New Brunswick, but usually it's not as blatant as this. This deal is outrageous. And while there will be no residential rate change for 5 years, 5 years really isn't that long. And after that, look out. Notice there are no restrictions on how high Hydro-Quebec will be able to raise its rates, and control over our electrical energy will no longer be made in the Legislative Assembly of New Brunswick. Those decisions will be made at the Assemblée Nationale. This deal is wrong on so many levels. It's not balanced in that it doesn't treat the little guy equally with the big guy. The process is seriously flawed because it's been done completely behind closed doors and without any public input at all. NBPower belongs to the people of New Brunswick. Shawn Graham does not have the moral authority or the mandate to sell it, especially when he's campaigned under 2 campaigns to say that it would remain in the hands of New Brunswickers. It may be just another broken promise to Shawn Graham, but there's a principle here that cannot be ignored. Our public utility has given us control over our energy supply since NBPower was incorporated some 90 years ago. It meant that we have had control of our destiny. To surrender this to another jurisdiction should never be allowed without the consent of the owners, the people of New Brunswick. What this amounts to is giving up on our basic constitutional rights, and Shawn Graham said inside today that New Brunswickers are no longer the shareholders of NBPower, and that is unacceptable. Even leaving that aside for the moment, the deal is not nearly good enough for New Brunswickers. It is small business being hit again. It's rural areas, again, coming out on the short end, and it amounts to giving up on northern New Brunswick and on the energy hub concept. The energy hub will be moved from St. John, New Brunswick to Saint Jean, Quebec. Will this deal be one of self-sufficiency or of self-destruction? And why? Because this government has driven us so far into debt that it sees that selling our assets are its only option. Well, Shawn Graham, again, may be for sale, but New Brunswick is not for sale. As one of the many New Brunswickers who have contacted me over the last few days have said very clearly, Shawn Graham, we can't trust what he says, and we certainly can't afford what he does. This is a desperation move by the Premier, who said, and I quote, "Our position, the position of the opposition and the Liberal Party of New Brunswick is very clear. New Brunswick power will remain in the hands of New Brunswickers. It's our most valuable utility, and we will allow it to provide safe, reliable, and affordable energy to all New Brunswickers, residential and commercial," end quote. This isn't only a bad deal, it's a terrible deal. And as Danny Williams says, I caution you, based on our experience with Hydro-Quebec, that a short-term opportunity can turn into a long-term loss of significant magnitude, as they will most definitely find ways to recoup their investment and more from New Brunswickers who no longer control their energy destiny. Given how Newfoundland has been treated by Hydro-Quebec, and given that Shawn Graham and his government has had to backtrack on every major decision that they have taken, should send a huge flag to New Brunswickers that this government is not getting it right. And this government does not have another chance to get it right. The bottom line is Shawn Graham has no mandate to do this, and it cannot be allowed without approval of the people of New Brunswick, the shareholders of New Brunswick. Today, my message to the Premier is very clear. Delay this deal until after the fixed election date of next December. If not, then go to the people now. NBPower is not for sale. This deal is very bad. Shawn Graham has sold our rights, our say over important decisions, and he is selling our very souls. He has no right to sign this deal. He has no mandate. Merci.